What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. I can't tell you how much it really does help out. And also, yesterday we had a new member over on YouTube. We had Kendall Reed. Thank you so much for your support. And then over on Patreon, we had Michelle J. Thank you so much for your support. I can't tell you how much it means to this channel for you to do that right now. It's absolutely amazing of you. And if you are a member, don't forget to look out for the community posts and over on Patreon too, where I post the members videos on Saturday. And let's not forget everyone for taking the time out of your day to be here to support the channel with you watching, liking, and just getting involved. So thank you so much. And with that being said, let's get on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now our first story comes from Dolipa. Am I the arsehole for telling my family that if they want Thanksgiving, they'll have to get off their asses and plan it? Usually for Thanksgiving, we head out to go see family. Someone else always hosts. We typically help sponsor the host by paying for cleanup, etc. Our home is just too small to host the 30 plus folks who typically show up throughout the day. This year, that's obviously not happening. Other than us talking about not doing the usual, Thanksgiving didn't come up until yesterday. My kids have the week off from online school, and I was doing a puzzle with them before dinner, when my husband walks in after work and says, "So, did we get the turkey?" I looked at him and said, "Well, I know I didn't, did you?" He stared at me blankly and said, "No, what do you mean? Do we still need to get one? Is it being delivered?" I shrugged and said, "I don't know nothing about no turkey." The kids and he looked so confused, so I helped them along and said, "I didn't buy anything, I didn't plan anything, no one said anything to me about Thanksgiving, nobody offered to help meal plan, cook anything, do anything." He blew up yelling at me about how I should have obviously known. I said why, I've literally never planned or made a Thanksgiving dinner in my life. The most I've ever done was help clean up or maybe peel the potato. I asked him why didn't he plan anything? Why didn't the kids plan anything? Why is everyone waiting until the last minute and dumping it on me? He just sputtered and yelled and stormed off to his office and left me with the kids. We all had dinner, the kids cleaned up, and I was relaxing with some wine and a book after they all went to bed. My husband tore into me about how he can't believe I left all this to the last minute. Now there will be no Thanksgiving, that he's now heartbroken, and how could I do this to the kids, etc. So I just looked at him and said, "Why didn't you plan? Why did you wait till the last minute to ask me?" He told me I was being a fucking bitch for no reason and stomped off to go sleep in his office. He left without saying a word this morning. I followed up with kids and asked them if they wanted Thanksgiving. They said they didn't care because the food isn't that good most of the time anyway. Before you ask, yep, I work as well. We split the chores, but there's no hard line. I do some, he does some. We both cook and the oldest cooks as well. I don't get why Thanksgiving is on my plate. Why? Just because I'm a woman? Haha. Fuck that. Am I the arsehole? Well, let's just face it, you're not going to be the arsehole in this situation, but I love a little Thanksgiving story. We don't have Thanksgiving over here. Not that I'm aware of anyway. So I do like reading about these kind of things and the different traditions and that sort of stuff. But you know, if he wants to cook it, he should be planning and cooking it. Why did he expect you to suddenly be doing this when you've never done it before in your life? That's absolutely insane. And they're calling you a bitch and stomping off too. Let's have a look at some of the comments to see what they say. Nano Cola says heavy not the arsehole. Also the way you handled this conversation is absolutely how I would have. I laughed out loud at, well, I know I didn't, did you? Also you all live in the same house and share the same kitchen. I'm sure you'd have noticed a turkey in the fridge if there was one. I'm sorry your husband has childlike temper tantrums. Enter the Bugbear says not the arsehole. Jesus, please us. The stones on this man. Sounds like someone has some sexism jammed into that turkey where the stuffing ought to be, honestly. If it was a situation where you were a stay-at-home parent and did all or even most of the cooking, then it could have been a mild you're the arsehole. Per your post, I see that you share those duties, so you're morally well in the clear there. But telling your wife that she's being a fucking bitch for calmly asking why you weren't allowed to do the exact same thing he was doing, aka nothing, and then literally stomping off to his room, good God, that sounds, to put it mildly, extremely unattractive in a life partner. And Spooky Bay says, not the arsehole, if he's so concerned about having Thanksgiving dinner, he can cook it or go buy a platter from somewhere. If you've never done it before, why would he just assume you would? He should have talked about it with you if that's what he wanted so you guys could figure it out together. Literally, all it is themed food. It's not like you cancel Christmas and you can eat boxed macaroni while being thankful for stuff. And Coco Mimi says, and quotes, I don't know nothing about no turkey. I love that line. Not the arsehole. And Eternal Entropy says, not the arsehole, a phrase I hate more than anything is, it goes without saying. Because often it really doesn't. This is the attitude your husband has taken with you and Thanksgiving. Dumping all this on you and blaming you is wrong. If he had come to you and discussed it, then that would be different, but he hasn't and is acting like an arsehole. Now I turn it to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? What would you do in it? How would you deal with a husband? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 1. And our next story is from Aviaves. Am I the arsehole for telling my in-laws that they would be responsible if me and my husband divorced? First, some important context. Last year, me and my husband had our last child and the pregnancy was extremely complicated and life-threatening to both the baby and myself. At one point, there was a 30% chance of both of us being alive by the end of it. Due to this, I have some complications that are going to impact me for the rest of my life. During this time, my husband was terrible. He did not support me at all and would get quite angry whenever I wanted to talk about it. He brushed it off, didn't help around the house with the other kids, and got to the point where he was emotionally abusive. About a month after my daughter was released from the NICU, my loving and caring husband came back, but I was destroyed and told him that I wanted a divorce. Obviously, we started going to counselling, and during this time we found out that he had Asperger's syndrome and was just really good at masking. Afterwards, our entire relationship made a lot more sense to me. We always knew he was socially awkward and he had a lot of quirks, and all of our arguments can be traced back to symptoms of his autism. Now, after months of him not wanting to tell anybody, he finally got the courage to tell his parents about his diagnosis. Their response? Oh, well, we always knew that. You were diagnosed with autism at 2, but we didn't tell you so that you can have a normal life. I was furious. Like I said, all of our arguments have always been the symptoms of his autism. So much hurt and pain for both of us could have been avoided had we known. My husband could have learned better coping techniques as a child, and I could have learned better coping techniques earlier in our marriage. I was so mad at them that I screamed that their selfishness could have cost us our marriage and may still. My husband was pretty pissed too, and we both hung up the phone. Now I'm getting phone calls saying that I took it too far and that his Asperger's diagnosis shouldn't have any impact on our relationship if I actually loved him. And yes, I probably just realised that I pronounced Asperger's wrong all the way through. I think I was corrected on this before and I totally forgot it, but I'm going with it though, so don't hate on me for that. But in this book that I've been reading, there's a very similar example. So I've been reading this book about autism to try and sort of understand it a bit more, because it does come up quite a lot in these stories and other developmental issues as well. So I've been trying to sort of keep myself up to date with it a bit so I don't unintentionally offend anyone or anything like that, because that's the last thing I want to do, right? But in this book there's a similar example to this story where the parents didn't want to accept that their child had autism because they wanted their child to be, in air quotes, normal. So they just treated them like any other child growing up, and when they got to adulthood they had severe issues with talking to people and social interaction and things like that, because they were brought up just like everyone else, but they had these issues because their parents didn't accept that their child had autism. Whereas if the parents did go along with it, they could have had, better assistance helping them to grow up, the assistance that they may need at certain points in their life. And it almost sounds like that's what the husband's parents have done in this story. They knew he was diagnosed with autism at 2 and didn't deal with it. And it just almost sounds like they just brushed it to one side, like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. Which in my opinion is a huge arsehole move, and it's affected him later in life, as we can see in this story. But I'll be very interested to know what goes on down in the comments, so let's have a look. Aurora Wolf Melody says, not the arsehole. Sounds like your in-laws don't really understand mental disorders at all and don't care to. You have every right to be upset and resentful, and so does your husband, especially your husband. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you have his diagnosis though, and it sounds like you're doing everything in your power to rebuild your relationship. I hope it works out well for both of you. Also, Asperger's has a strong genetic connection, so teaching your children about it is super important. If your in-laws can't respect whatever you need in the future, I would strongly consider distancing from them. And the mirror's truth says, not the arsehole, you don't love him less because of his Asperger's, but because of his untreated issues. Hopefully you two will be able to work through the issues and your husband figures out if he wants to handle his parents. Just another Lesbo says, not the arsehole, he should have known about his own medical history. They shouldn't have held that from him. Also, had he known, he could have learned ways to deal with his emotions, or things you've argued about in a more healthy way. By trying to help him, they have hurt him, and you and I think it is reasonable for you to be upset, but it's even more reasonable for him to be upset. Now, I turn it to you guys. What do you think of this situation? I think it's a not the arsehole situation because yes, absolutely they should be told that they could be responsible for this divorce for what they've done. But do you think there's anything else in this story? Do you think there's another path OP could have went down? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 2. And the next story is from Frustration Nation. Am I the arsehole for expecting my kids to attend all family holidays? I, 52 male, never had a big family unit growing up. My dad bailed when I was a baby, and it was just my mum and I after that. I was often jealous of friends who would have big family celebrations. My wife and I have 3 children, Alice 27, Jeff 24 and Kevin 22 male. Fake names. I always thought my kids would spend all the holidays with us because I always stressed how important it was to me to have them all home with me. I did a Zoom call with the 3 yesterday and they broke the news to me that none of them would be coming home for Thanksgiving. I got upset and Alice interrupted me to remind me that she and Jeff worked in fields and that they would sometimes have to work holidays. She's an X-ray technician in a hospital and Jeff is a dispatcher for 911. And that she was married now and she knew I wanted us all home for every holiday, but that just wasn't realistic. I asked Kevin what his excuse was and he said he was going to stay with his girlfriend because she just had surgery and he wanted to care for her. I said they needed to get their priorities straight and they knew it was important to their mother and I that they attend. Jeff said that my wife understood and I was the only one who was constantly trying to guilt trip them into rearranging their lives to make me happy, and he hated that I refused to let them live their lives without trying to guilt trip them into doing what I want. Alice said it wasn't up for discussion, that I could either accept they wouldn't always be there or I could celebrate without her from here on out because she was done dealing with me trying to make her feel guilty for having a life. They disconnected after that. I am very upset and I think I deserve more respect than this, but my wife says it's unreasonable to think that the kids would always come home. Just because I wanted something didn't mean it was going to happen, and I needed to stop acting like an arsehole to get my way. I don't think I am, but I'll put it out here. Am I the arsehole for wanting my children home for the holidays? I kind of get that you want the big family get together and all that sort of thing. Who doesn't? Everyone loves a massive family get together. But you know, they're adults. They're adults now. They got their own jobs and everything. And when does this end? At what age can they stop doing this? Or do they have to do this indefinitely until OP dies? I personally think it is very wrong for you to guilt them into coming home when they do have their own lives to lead, especially to guilt them too. They're probably feeling extremely bad about the situation that you want them home and you're not doing it. So you are you're manipulating them into doing it. So I can totally understand why they're upset, and I would say you are the arsehole in the situation. But Marks31 says you're the arsehole. First of all, nobody should be travelling right now, period. Second of all, your children don't hate you if they don't want to spend a holiday with you. They're adults with jobs and lives. It sucks, but a part of being a parent is letting your children grow up sometimes. They're not cutting you off forever. Lale Walden says, you're the arsehole. So their spouses should never get to see their families for holidays, or when they have their own kids, those kids should get to enjoy some holidays, especially Christmas, in their own home. Slooky says, yes, you're the arsehole. They are adult children with their own lives. You do not and cannot control what they do. Guilting them will not work and it will obviously push them farther away. It's okay to be hurt, but not okay to make them feel guilty for having other priorities. And Wickedest says, you're the arsehole, then quotes, I said they needed to get their priorities straight and they knew it was important to their mother and I that they attend. And then says, your kids are all adults who need to prioritise their lives and one day, their families. It's not going to be about you and your wife. If and when your adult children get married and have families of their own, do you really think you should remain their top priority? Will you give them attitude if they spend the holidays with their SO's family instead of you? You're doubly the arsehole for acting like this is about respect. How about you respect the decisions of your adult children? Now, what do you guys think of this story? And what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 3. And our next story is from Throw Away My Flute. Am I the arsehole for telling our server she had a beautiful scalp at my wife's birthday dinner? Gotta say, this one already sounds creepy to me. Imagine that. Whoa, the scalp on that. Oh, anyway. This happened before the coronavirus was a thing, in case you're wondering. Obviously, right now, we're staying in as much as possible and supporting local business throughout takeout and delivery. So this was over a year ago and my wife won't let it go. I'm looking for some external input. I took my wife to our local favourite spot for her birthday. Everything was good as usual, but we had a server neither of us had seen before, with a somewhat striking appearance. She was completely bald. Normally I wouldn't say anything about something like that because I'm afraid of being rude. But towards the end of the dinner, the server made a joke about she and I having the same haircut. I'm bald. I said something along the lines of, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm curious. Are you bald by choice? It turns out she was, which was a great relief to me since I didn't want to pry into if she was sick or involuntary bald for some reason. She was more than happy to talk about it and told me about how she'd always loved bald heads and wanted to try it. She said she got positive feedback and just kept her head shaved. I told her I loved that and I thought women could look very beautiful bald even though it's not something you see very often. I told her she had a great head shape for it and joked about offering razor recommendations. It was a light conversation and that was the end of it. For the rest of the meal my wife was silent. I could tell something was wrong. When we got into the car there was a moment of pause between us and I asked if something was wrong. She replied, are we going to stop at Walgreens and pick up some clippers? I asked her what she meant and she said, obviously since I was enthralled with our server's shaved head, she had to do something to win her husband's attention back. I was blatantly flirting with our server apparently. It spiraled into a huge fight with my wife accusing me of wanting to experiment with an exotic looking woman because I was tired of my boring old wife. I can't deny in that moment I probably looked like I was flirting with our server. It was not intentional, but I guess I realised how it could have seemed inappropriate at my wife's birthday dinner. I did find her attractive, but my wife would always come first. I'm attracted to her and I love her. That's why I married her. Even now she makes little references like, I guess I'm not as interesting as a bold goddess, or does this look good on me, or do I need to show some scalp? So am I the arsehole for this? I just wanted things to be okay. I've tried apologising, but nothing will stop it. Now there's a couple of edits on this, but they were obviously done after some comments. We'll come back to that in a sec, but we'll read some comments first. The Wizard Colin says, you're the arsehole. It was probably harmless and light-hearted, but it was your wife's birthday dinner, and you made a bit of a fuss over another woman, right in front of your wife. You complimented her, you were more engaging with her than you would have otherwise been with the other servers, or at least that's the vibe I get. Basically it sounds like this particular bold lady made you react differently than you normally would. If you never hit it off with any of the normal servers but a particularly busty girl is serving you and you're way more friendly than usual, or the first and only blonde server is there and you make a very specific comment, or you're way more chatty with the only server in a miniskirt versus all the girls in long trousers. In other words, you made a fuss over another woman on your wife's birthday, right in front of her. Webby Vanderquack says, I haven't seen Webby in a while, you're the arsehole, you were flirting with your server in front of your wife. Imagine if you had a male server with long hair and your wife told him, I love that. And she said, I thought men look very beautiful with long hair, even though it's not something you see often. And that he had a great head shape for it. Flirting. Adept1 says, you're the arsehole, though I guess not for the reason your wife is upset about. You're allowed to find a variety of people attractive, and her taking it so personally is over the top. The reason you're a bit of an arsehole is twofold. You have no way of knowing if it was a medical condition you could have made her feel terrible about, and second, flirting with people who have no ability to tell you to knock it off because of the power dynamics of the situation is pretty bad. Now we're going to come back to the edits to see what he says. Edits, I'm starting to see people making comments that seem to indicate it's never okay to talk about balding in public. I reject this completely. I did not bring this up out of nowhere. The topic came up whenever the server pointed out, in a jovial fashion, that she and I had the same haircut. It was a brief conversation with zero negative or uncomfortable vibes. And when she left I said bye to the server and she pointed at her head and gave me a little thumbs up. I get the feeling we would have got along well as friends, so this isn't the issue. Edit 2, good grief you guys, let me clear something up. My wife is 25 and I'm 24. The server looked older than both of us. probably early 30s, so anything saying in flirting with a young woman is wrong. Also, my wife suggested I don't find her attractive anymore, which is completely wrong. Why would I marry someone I didn't think was a capital H-O-T? She's plenty attractive. I'm reading everything you're sending and it's split down the middle as far as I can tell. All I can tell you is please read carefully. No one was trapped in a conversation with me they didn't want. As I said, the server got my attention as we were leaving. Do you get the attention of people you're glad are almost out the door? Also, I don't remember the conversation down the last detail, but it was maybe a minute tops. Hope things give a little more clarity. I'm really disappointed in one part of this story. The title said that he's told the server she had a beautiful scalp. I wanted to hear that line somewhere in the story. I was waiting for it. So you're the arsehole for that one. But the main line that really got me is when you turn around and you said, I told her I loved that and I thought women could look very beautiful bold, even though it's not something you see often. I told her she had a great head shape for it and joked about offering razor recommendations. Now you say that as a light comment, and yes, it can be seen as a light comment, but sat in front of your wife, I've just got this picture of your wife sat there staring at you, looking up at this woman with a big grin on your head saying, oh yes, I thought women could look very beautiful bold. Your wife just sitting there thinking, what the fuck? So I would say you the arsehole for that, even though it was a light conversation. It was your wife's birthday dinner and you was doing this in front of her. Yeah, I would say you're slightly the arsehole for that. But now I turn it to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? How would you deal with it if you was the wife and your partner was doing this? How would you deal with it? Would you be offended? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 4. Once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories. And if you did, you know what to do. Hit that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. A huge thank you for the time out of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.